everyone likes to have an enemy. Everyone wants to point at the rich and say, hey, it's your fault. And you know, that's what people want to hear. Like they want to point the finger at someone. It can sound very deep and philosophical at first, like this idea of like, if you find value in something, you can send some value back. But it really comes down to the creator. Like how much do you want that freedom? Because if you really want it, you have to really commit to it over a long period of time, be really, really consistent, and not make any stupid decisions about, you know, advertising or other kind of things you might do to try and, you know, line your pockets.
This episode of the Free Cities podcast is brought to you by Veritas Village. Now, Veritas Village is an off-grid, self-sufficient place for people who are interested in living a normal, freedom-oriented life. You can reduce your reliance on corporations or government systems in your very own energy self-sufficient luxury home with its own water supply, located in a perfect climate to grow your own food. Communities use Bitcoin, and you can also buy your property with Bitcoin as well. www.ecovillages.life/free cities for more info. Please don't forget to mention the Free Cities podcast, and in the meantime, enjoy the conversation. It's worth actually, I think, starting on that. It's a bit of a moot point, but we're in a kind of WeWork type. What is WeWork, is it?
It's actually called work.life.
Same thing.
It's like a similar thing, yeah.
And like, I don't come to London much anymore. And when I lived in London, London was like, you know, it was the London of the 90s, noughties. No co-working spaces wasn't a thing. None of this stuff was a thing. But now it's massive, huge. And in fact, I've done 3 interviews so far this week, and they've all been in these kind of places. And it's bizarre. It's weird. It's like it's a whole new way of working. It's all. I mean, like, there's people sitting out, like, these are public bits, right? We're in a private bit now. Yeah. So you kind of, your offices are in here, but you also have the option to rent out little rooms for meetings and stuff. But you've got an office somewhere as well, have you?
We've got a little glass box upstairs. Yeah.
So everyone can see in.
Yeah.
How is that weird?
Yeah. I mean, with these places are all the same. Because we were in a WeWork before over in Shoreditch, and yeah, they're all exactly the same. Interestingly enough, actually, our old office, there was actually another glass box next to ours. And the lady inside, she put up all this opaque covering on the glass walls in between us. And we were wondering what's going on in there. And we realized that she was actually sleeping in there. She'd got like a reclining chair. She was doing kind of micro needling, beauty treatments or something. And she was just sleeping in there overnight.
That's bizarre. Yeah. No, it is a bit weird, but it is very modern. What's the generation that you find working in here? Is it like
I guess it's millennials
onwards? Yeah, and it's totally acceptable now, isn't it? People have no problem with literally having a meeting on a couple. It's like being in Starbucks and doing a proper business meeting and stuff.
Yeah.
Bizarre. So why didn't you get an office out in the countryside somewhere? Like, why didn't you just rent a nice place in, I don't know, the Cots? I don't know. They're probably expensive. I have no idea, but it must be pretty expensive. We're right in Soho. It's the centre of what used to be the media district. I don't know if it still is now. Is it?
Yeah, I think it's just about. Yeah. I think if we did it again, we maybe would do that. I live just slightly outside London, so I try and work from home as much as I can. I hate coming in, really. I cycle in it as well, which is just manic. It's crazy.
But what's the thought process in having a startup and then having an office in Soho?
I think it's just kind of in between all of us, really. So it's kind of easy. And, if you want to come here on the weekend, it's nice because you can meet friends in town. Then you can also go to the office beforehand. It's kind of, it fits into your life a bit better. So
it does pay to still be in this world of like digital communication and Zoom and all this kind of stuff. It does pay to still be able to meet someone in real life or not? I mean, your business is all online, right?
Pretty much. I mean, most of the people I speak to are in the US. So yeah, I mean, you're actually one of the first people to come into the office
ever.
Yeah.
mean, it's not like coming into the office, though, isn't it? It's not like you get to meet everyone and stuff. It's like I get to meet a bunch of strangers, and there was a full-on board meeting going on next door. Yeah. I'm just looking in. God, they could be talking about super important, like, I don't know, something really private and important, and I can literally just looking at them all.
Yeah,
I could see what one of the girls was looking at on her phone under the table. That's like, I don't know whether that's a good idea in business, is it?
I think it's not down to the preference of the people who work here. It's the owners who want to pack as many people as possible into the smallest space possible and get as much money out of us as possible. So that's just
it's a function of the fiat monetary system.
I think you find it is, yeah.
Without going straight to the point there, talking of the fiat monetary system, I wanted to ask your opinion on something. I mentioned this before we started talking, but yesterday I was interviewing a guy who runs a gold company, and he mentioned Gary's economics. Right now, prior to last night when I got back to my hotel, all I knew about Gary's economics was that one clip of him talking about Bitcoin, which he doesn't understand. He had no understanding of Bitcoin. So by default then, I just thought, well, probably most of what else he's speaking about is bullshit as well. So I didn't really give him the time of day, but this guy mentioned him and mentioned that he's really popular, especially amongst youngsters, millennials onwards, you know. Yeah. So I did a bit of looking, and the first video I came across was him talking about why houses are expensive.
I saw that. Yeah.
Right. Now, what's really disturbing about Gary in Gary's economics is that he's very forthright. He says things very authoritatively, but he's completely hypocritical about what he says. So he was saying about houses, he said, like, what normal economists do is they just boil it down to something really simple, like we need more supply. There's not enough supply of them, blah, blah. But it's not true. And then he went into this long tirade about why house prices have gone up. That started with him saying, you know, in COVID, I bought gold because I knew the price of gold was going to go up.
Yeah.
And everything's going up. It's not just houses. Everything's going up, and people can't see that everything's going up. And I'm thinking, brilliant. You know, he's gonna start talking about the government and central banking soon and printing money. But no, he stopped at it's the rich. It's the rich buying everything. It's the rich buying assets. He never stopped to take it back another stage to how come the rich got so much money during COVID, for example. What was the mechanism for that money coming? And then when you look a bit deeper, it's like, dude, this guy's a full-on socialist.
Yeah.
He's actually like kind of, there's a funny program when I was a kid. You probably don't know. It was called Citizen Smith. Have you ever heard of this?
I haven't.
It was a BBC sitcom about this socialist guy called, I can't remember his name. He lived in Tooting, and he was like, his catchphrase was "power to the people," and he was just an idiotic socialist Londoner who was trying to bring Tooting out of oppression and stuff. And it was pretty funny, but it would never happen now. They would never allow it. But he's just like that. He's like the working man's Marxist who basically says it's all the rich's fault, and the answer is to tax the rich. So the answer is the government needs to be bigger, harder, stronger. It's
more interventionist.
Yes. Yeah. Like, but do you know what the saddest thing was? And I'd like your opinion on this. That video you're talking about, it was on social media, like 1 million plus views on Twitter or whatever. And underneath, I thought, right, let's go to the comments then. Let's see how everyone's fighting their corner down there. And it was so depressing because it was half and half. It was half people saying, "Oh, Gary, you're amazing. It's so true." And the other half was just idiotic Bitcoiners, not saying, just trying to kind of gotcha him. And obviously he doesn't care. He's not going to listen to any of that stuff. I mean, what's going on, man? Like, how did that guy? It makes me think he's a plant or something. It really does.
Well, that's what people think, isn't it?
I know. Not me. I would say no. But then after watching that, I'm thinking, look, this guy's obviously getting boosted because he's basically, and I could easily imagine a government department saying, hey, look, this guy's kind of basically on our team. Let's get him out there. Let's push him. Bigger government, more interventionism, taxing the rich, and all. Yeah.
I think he's just playing up to popular opinion amongst millennials and so the new generation, because everyone likes to have an enemy. Everyone wants to point at the rich and say, hey, it's your fault. And you know, that's what people want to hear. Like they want to point the finger at someone. And I think particularly where these videos travel on YouTube, they pick up on these sort of shock headlines that he kind of creates. He plays people against each other, and it creates tension, it creates arguments, it makes the YouTube comments go on fire, and then the video goes even further.
But you said you read his book, right? Originally.
I actually listened to his audiobook earlier this year before I even knew who he was.
And you thought it was quite good?
Well, I was entertained by it. I find all that stuff fascinating, you know, like inside the life of like the financial world, like particularly people who have come out of it the other side and have an interesting story to tell, which he does.
But his book's not about monetary policy and stuff. It's
not
about what his life was as a trader.
It's about the lifestyle of being a trader in the city. And he was, he was trading currencies. And I think he was Citibank's top trader globally for a short period.
Which I did a bit of research on that as well. There's plenty of people
I think
that's bullshit as well.
True.
I don't know. But I mean, you know, but but then you discovered that actually you looked into what he's actually saying about economics.
He didn't mention macroeconomics once in the book, really. He didn't talk about Bitcoin at all. There was really nothing controversial in there. It was really just entertainment. There were some very interesting characters that come up in the book, and it was a good listen. But then I came back and I saw all these videos of him talking about Bitcoin, saying it had no value and whatsoever. So at that point, I kind of felt a little bit, you know, stupid for enjoying his book, because I'm like, this guy actually, you know, is maybe not all that great.
Well, you can be fascinated with the life of a trader. I am. I think, you know, like Wall Street, the film, and all that kind of buy, sell. It is amazing and fascinating. And especially if you're a bloke, it really taps into some primordial urges to sort of compete and make money and do better. And, you know, I think, you know, I could have done that job. I think I just never ended up in that situation. And I, you know, like a lot of people a lot of Bitcoiners I know, there was a point in the last 10 or so years where they looked at trading, because you start wondering about economics, you start wondering about prices of things, and you soon realize trading is something you need to learn over a very, very long period of time. And if you don't have the right temperament for it, which I can't sit on a losing trade for days. I can't do that. I just got to get out. I've got to, you know, it doesn't suit my personality. But I do find that fascinating. And yeah, I'm just really disappointed that he was so well liked, and yeah, he's like, it's almost like he's one step away from realizing it's true what he says. All that stuff about asset prices going up, and the reason is because rich people are buying them. That is true, but he just stops there, and says, right, the rich are the evil ones, which is basically the same as Karl Marx. Karl Marx said the same thing, and ended up, you know, Marxism ends up annihilating millions of people later down the line. Not that I don't know whether that could happen now, but
yeah, when he talks about Bitcoin as well, I mean, there's so many people out there like him which fall back to that argument of, you know, Bitcoin is not real. I can't touch it like I can touch my gold, you know. And I just think that I hear these arguments and it just makes me furious, because they just don't understand it. And a similar argument is taking place right now about Rachel Reeves, about whether she should sell the Bank of England's Bitcoin reserves. I think we've got something like 6,000 Bitcoin in reserve, which have been confiscated. And she's obviously in a very deep fiscal hole at the moment and needs to get out of it. And people are writing I think the Bitcoin Policy Institute have written all these open letters to Rachel Reeves saying, don't be the chancellor that sold the Bitcoin, you know, don't be Gordon Brown who sold the gold. Like you'll go down in history as the chancellor that sold the Bitcoin. So it's interesting.
I don't know. I mean, this current government we have is atrocious. It's such a low value set of people. It's unbelievable that it's an absolute symbol of how effed up the whole system is, that the people that now rise to the top are kind of like the worst. They really are the worst. And we're going through that stage in the cycle where we're almost at the extremes. So now you know, like it's either a strong man to fix, it's either fascism or communism, isn't it? It's like it's one or the other. We're kind of edging towards that thing, and there's all these people in the middle, mostly who don't really think about it, but the ones that do, unfortunately, fall into the Gary's economics trap, which is it's the rich. I'm a victim here of the rich, and then, you know, I don't know. I find it bizarre, because Gary's obviously rich, I think, and so he knows he earned his money. He knows that he's earned his money, and I don't know. It'd be interesting to see whether he would back the kind of things he advocates for in reality. I mean, I would imagine he wouldn't. I think he's a classic example in a way of what we call a champagne socialist.
Yeah.
Who basically wants to project the fact that he cares, but when he actually came to it, he'd be on the other side of the fence. He wouldn't be one of the people that kind of like are all the same as everyone else. I don't know.
I mean, he's in a very conflicted position because he's trying to push a very purpose-driven narrative and cause, but he's also trying to monetize his YouTube channel. And
sell a book as well.
And sell a book. So there's conflicts of interest there.
I don't mind that, I suppose. Like I really don't care. I want people to make money. I want him to live his best life. I really do. I think though that what I really wanted to ask him as well, because he was talking about COVID and he said, I bought gold at the beginning of COVID, which was obviously a good idea. Everyone who's anyone in our world knows that when the printer goes on and the government, you know, starts giving out free money, asset prices go up. We know that. It's not the trade of the century to buy gold at that point, or Bitcoin, or real estate, or Rolexes, or whatever the hell you want. But I wanted to know, he was banging on about that. Did he tell anyone to buy gold? Like, does he actually care? Does he tell his listeners, hey, dude, come on, look, asset prices are about to rise? Or does he just say, it's the rich's fault, we need to take money away from them because they're basically doing what I'm doing, which is nothing wrong with you. We're all playing the same game here. I think you and me want a different game. Gary wants the same game. He wants the game to continue. He just wants the government to take money off the winners and give it to the losers, which is socialism.
Well, I mean, you know, let's say that doesn't happen. Really, if he's going out on his YouTube channel telling people to buy gold, he's just basically saying, just use the same tactics as the rich have used to get their money. You know, if we can't beat them, join them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know why yeah, you're right. He'll end up, like most socialists actually, in a world of conflicting and ideas that don't make sense, and you have to be a champagne socialist at that point. You have to be the person that secretly isn't a socialist, whereas on the face value is. I don't know. I don't know. I went down the Gary rabbit hole last night when I got back in because I thought I better check this out, because I hadn't given him the time of day. I'd given him 10 minutes. I saw him talk about Bitcoin and completely and basically lump all cryptocurrency coins and Bitcoin in the same basket, which is mistake number one, right off the bat, and then say some absolutely idiotic things. And I was like, okay, you don't understand cryptography, you don't understand decentralized money, you don't actually understand money by the sounds of it. Right, okay, no point in really carrying on here. But I think probably he's a relatively important person to watch in case that catches on. That idea that it's the rich's fault, because that's just one very small facet of the diamond. It's not their fault. They're just doing what they're doing. You know, prices are going up because people are buying things with money that they're getting. Where they're getting the money from, that's the thing that Gary doesn't really want to go talk about. Yeah. Like, you can earn money, you can get free money from the government, you can get money from central banks, you can sell bonds. You know, he's not really going there, as far as I could tell. I looked through a few of his videos, but anyway, I think we're giving him too much oxygen at the moment. Anyway, but it's worth mentioning. So, Nick, I want to ask you about how you ended up here, because I think you co-founded Fountain.
Yeah, this is 4 or 5 years ago. 4 years ago.
Right. I joined Fountain probably not too long after you started it. I think I told you this once on a call that I liked it. I like the concept. I like the idea. And then it just seemed like I would never be able to monetize what I'm doing through it. Because it's too early, I think, probably. But we can come back to that. But basically, for everyone listening, Fountain's actually the platform I now host the podcast on. But it's a podcasting app, essentially, which allows micropayments of Bitcoin. And it's now integrated with Nostr, which I talk about a lot on this podcast as well, which is another protocol which people are using to have direct interactions with each other, currently mainly being used as a social network, but really new apps and new applications popping up all the time. Why don't you get start by saying how you started, what's been your trajectory to this point? Because that's quite a weird business to get into.
Yeah. I mean, well, when we started the business in 2021, I didn't know about Bitcoin.
Really?
It didn't start as a Bitcoin company. It was me and my co-founder, Oscar, who I've known since school. We were just talking about ideas in lockdown. At the time, I was working in the corporate world. I was working at Nike. But I was spending most of my time dreaming about what I was going to do next because I was just a bit bored of it.
What were you doing at Nike?
So I was doing...
Is it Nike?
It's Nike.
Is it?
Yeah.
Jesus, I've been saying it wrong my whole life.
Yeah, no, it's named after the Greek goddess of victory, Nike. Yeah.
Jesus, there are so many. They have not made a public attempt at correcting that amongst people.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people in the UK particularly call it Nike just because that's phonetically, that's how it reads. But it is Nike.
What were you doing at Nike then? Whoops.
So I was doing brand marketing. So whenever we had a new product launch, I was working a lot in football. So it was generally football boots or, club kits. When we had a new launch, we'd work on the creative and the rollout for the launch. It was fun, particularly when I was actually in the office because I got to go traveling a lot. I got to, go and visit different football clubs, go on shoots with athletes. I'm a Chelsea fan. One of our clubs was Chelsea, so I spent a lot of time doing shoots with Chelsea, which was fun. I was just hanging out in the car park trying to harass Ashley Cole and any other kind of Chelsea celebrities that walked through until I got kicked out. But it was fun for a while. And then before that, I was working in advertising. So yeah, when I left university in 2012, I was in advertising for maybe 6 years working in creative agencies, which was a lot of fun. It kind of suited my lifestyle at the time, really. I was kind of work hard, play hard. I think it ended up being, I worked harder and played even harder, I think that's kind of where I ended up falling out of that. So in 2018, I was just fully burnt out. I was traveling back and forth to the US so much. I was doing 18-hour days trying to work across different time zones.
That's at Nike.
This was before Nike. This was in the agency I was working in. So my previous client was Adidas. So I've always been in the sort of sports world. So yeah, I just burnt out, and I got a doctor's note. I was off work for a month, and in that month I decided, you know what, I'm not going to go to another agency. I'm not going to go back to my job. I want to go into the corporate world. I want to have a 9 to 5. I want to just draw the line between work and life a bit better.
Really? Sorry to butt in. Normally at that point, people say something different. It's like, I want to go traveling, or I want to get the hell out of here. I don't want to.
Yeah, I never did that. I regret that now because now I've got a kid and I'm married, so it's harder for me to do that.
Right. But your fallback place, which is interesting, really, because I wouldn't have considered the corporate world a fallback from the advertising world. It obviously is.
I think fallback in a sense that there was more boundaries, because I was always in client services, account management in the agency world. So I was always like the first one in the office, last one out. I was taking a lot of the stress and the pressure of being in the sort of client agency relationship.
Do you have to do a lot of the drinking and partying?
Yeah, and I'm also like it was my job to go out and win new business, to grow the account. So I had a lot of commercial pressure as well as like the pressure of making sure that the work is good. And I'm quite a conscientious person, so I just let that get to me. So I got to the point when I was like, you know what? I want to try something different. I want to just have a bit more of a segmented life when I can come into the office at 9, leave at 5. I'm not really responsible for growing the business, and I don't need to because Nike's a multi-billion-dollar company. Like, no one's really going to notice if I don't do a good job.
That's the route down a lot of the fiat path, isn't it? It's like now that's a bit of a meme these days. Go in and do the least amount of work you can in your job, and like.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. For me, it wasn't doing the least amount of work. It was just like trying to take on a slightly smaller amount of responsibility and personal responsibility about the outcomes of my work. So I was at Nike for, I think, just over 3 years, and half of that time was in lockdown. And like I said, most of that time in lockdown, I was thinking about, what am I going to do after this? Because I've always wanted to have my own business. I've always wanted to have that freedom just to be able to be like, right, what are we going to do today? What are we going to build? I've got an idea, let's go. Which you can't do at Nike, you can't do in agencies. So back to your first question, like when Fountain started, it wasn't even a podcast app to begin with. It was a social audio sharing app. And the idea being that you can upload clips or you can create clips of stuff and share them easily with other people. We quickly realized that it wasn't going to take off because you have to convince people who are creating content to come onto your platform and trust you, even though you have nobody there. So we moved away from that, and we just decided actually we both are really into podcasts.
Why did you have why was that called Fountain then? I thought that was quite a good name for it's like fountain of content.
Yeah, it's kind of I think it's kind of a dual meaning, really. The first one is like fountain of wisdom or fountain of knowledge. You know, we wanted to use the ability to create clips and, take this, what is very long form content and put it into short form. So it's more discoverable, more searchable, more shareable as a way of just kind of creating like a library for all the stuff you can learn. And then the other meaning was, if you think about how a fountain works, it's kind of like a circular system. Like the water comes out the top, it goes back through the bottom. And that's very much how the money flows on Fountain, because as a listener, or let's say, one of the things we do on Fountain is you can actually earn money by listening to podcasts. For us, it's kind of like a bit of a loyalty system in a way, whereby if you keep listening on Fountain, you get some reward from it. And we kind of reward your attention in the way that other platforms maybe do not. So the money you earn, you can either keep it, you can withdraw it to a wallet, or you can send it back to a podcaster and the money flows. And the money that the podcaster gets, they are also using the app as a listener and they can support a podcast. So really, money is flowing all over the place, and it kind of works in a circular system in the same way a Fountain does.
How did so when you realized the company wasn't going to work, how did you then, at that point, did you discover Bitcoin and then realize you could integrate it into it, or were you already into that kind of stuff?
Oscar's been into Bitcoin since relatively early on. I remember him saying to me in like 2016, like, you should get some Bitcoin.
He's an old mate of yours, is he?
Yeah.
Not from Nike or anything like that?
We went to school together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he was always into Bitcoin. And then, because he had a previous company before this, which he'd sold, and was looking for a new challenge. So we were meeting up and working on this kind of social sharing audio app. And this was only after a few months we realized that actually we're probably best to focus on podcasts, because there's an existing library of content that we can pull in through RSS. Suddenly we have 4 million podcasts on the app. And that clipping tool that we've built, we can apply to podcasts, and you can easily clip a podcast. So that's kind of where it started. I think it wasn't until, there was probably a couple more months before we actually launched the app publicly. And in that time, that's when we saw what was happening with Adam Curry and podcasting 2.0 and the whole specification for open podcasting being better defined and having all these new features like the lightning payments being integrated. So we launched with that. I really quickly had to go on a crash course of Bitcoin to figure out what it all was. So
was that 2020?
I think it was 2021.
Yeah, a lot of people got into it during the pandemic, didn't they?
Yeah.
Wow, that must have been fun times. How did it affect you psychologically? I know a lot of people that went a little bit crazy when when you have to go straight deep in, one touch point and then down the rabbit hole.
I think what was really interesting for me is that my first experiences with Bitcoin were thinking more practically about how it can be used as a medium of exchange in an app. So I wasn't sold in by a friend on the monetary philosophy behind it, the store of value stuff. Like I kind of got to that later. Oscar gave me a copy of the Bitcoin Standard. I read that later. But first we were having conversations about how do these payment works? How can we split the payments? How can we get the right metadata in the payments so that we can see who sent it, what content they sent it to, all the technical stuff.
Oh, that's pretty good. And I mean, you mentioned the word attention earlier, and what I think a lot of people are just starting to realize is that the whole internet that they now use on a daily basis is based around your attention. It's like, and not in a good way, not in it at all in a good way. In fact, it's this kind of self-perpetuating, terrible idea that the internet vies for your attention. When it gets it, it works out how to do it more, and it gets it more and more and more. And that's how the whole economy is set up. Grab your attention, monetize it with an advertiser or whoever, sell you something, and then, this is how it works. And as a result now, apps are all evolving in the same direction, which is keep you sat there looking at it, which is terrible. I think it's sad that you said earlier that I might be the first person that actually come to visit you in real life. And there's a reason why I do that, because there's a reason why I do the podcast in real life as well. I think things like this are all really important, and sitting on a screen is not, it's useful sometimes, but it's not good for you. And I've got kids now, so I know it's not good for them. You can see when they're doing that and when they're not. Yet we've fallen into this world where the world is basically monetizing the internet on the basis of attention, which obviously is the opposite to what Fountain does. Fountain's kind of like a trade. It's like, you listen to my podcast, then you send me a little bit of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that this idea that platforms are monetizing people's attention is better understood than it was in the past. When did The Social Dilemma come out? That documentary on Netflix? That was a few years ago. So a lot of people saw that. A lot of people instantly recognized that, the behavior of apps like Facebook and Instagram and stuff. I still don't think that people see how other things work in that way, though. Like, people don't, I think, look at YouTube and see, okay, well, why am I mean, have you been on YouTube recently? I don't know if you're a premium YouTube subscriber. I'm not, but there's so many ads now. Like, if I'm watching a 20-minute video, there's probably 6 different inserted ad breaks.
And they're very subtle as well. What I noticed about Twitter the other day was when I was on the feed and I clicked on an ad by mistake. Sometimes your finger presses too hard. When I started scrolling from that ad, I only got ads. Like, it took me 6 before I thought, oh, mate, they're only serving me up ads here. I want to, and I didn't even really know the first one was necessarily an ad, because it was someone just talking about something. And then later on, it's like, hi guys, get ready with me when I'm like, and I was like, oh God, and you get sucked in. And then next thing you know, you say, first thing I do is I go to Starbucks and I get and you're like, oh shit, I've fallen into the trap here. I've been sold a Starbucks, or something like that, but yeah, so, I mean, was that something you thought about in the early days? Was that,
yeah.
Or did that
yeah, big time, because we had to start this business and think about what specific problem we were solving. Like, why would a podcaster come to us? And the best answer we could come up with was, podcasters don't have any freedom when it comes to how they monetize their podcast. If you're of a certain size and you've got a certain audience, you can put ads in there, either, sponsored host-read ads where you manage the relationship with your sponsor, or the kind of the dirtier type of ads, the dynamic ads that you get on kind of YouTube, where you have no control over what ads are going in, and they're really fucking annoying. And we didn't like that. We thought there's got to be a better way for podcasters to, take back control of how they're making money again. So that's why we put the sort of the direct payments in as a means to solve that. But I think the other thing we've been trying to battle with is like, right, that solves a real problem for the podcaster, but does it solve a problem for the listener? Like, I don't think listeners out there are thinking, God, I really wish there was just an easy way I could send Tim some money. People don't want to pay for something that's already free.
Correct.
And that's when we kind of get into this whole value for value idea, because it can sound very deep and philosophical at first, like this idea of like, if you find value in something, you can send some value back. But like most people probably just won't do that. They just want to listen to something that's free. So that's why we've been thinking more about what are the incentives for the listener. And one of the things that we've launched, will launch with this new product, podcast hosting platform, which you're now using, is the ability for podcasters to host their podcast on Fountain and actually do an ad-free version as well, so people can pay for a version without ads, which I think gets us closer to, product market fit of actually what does a listener want? Like what would make a listener send money to the podcast? That being said, though, there are still a large number of listeners out there who just, voluntarily will send a payment because they have such a deep connection with the content and with the podcast host. Particularly as well, like the smaller podcasts, like the ones who are independent, they don't employ editors or producers or, script writers or researchers. They're a one-man band. It's probably their side thing. Like it's not their main job. They're trying to find a way to sustain themselves. And the listener knows this. And the listener wants the content to keep coming. So the listener has to put some money in the hat, so to speak, to use busker language, for the content to keep coming. And so that has worked to an extent. And we see that podcasters who really commit to Fountain and decide, I'm going to talk about value for value, or maybe not in those words, but I'm going to ask my listeners to support me in every episode and be really consistent about it, and try and find a way to make it fun like you do by reading out the boosts and the comments at the end of the episode. Those who do that succeed. But I think the other challenge we have too is that until now, the only means of payment has been with Lightning. And I don't know how many people are using Lightning wallets these days. I mean, it's a niche within a niche, right? Bitcoin is niche within the world. Lightning is niche within Bitcoin. And then people who want to send a payment with Lightning, that's a niche within Lightning. A podcast payment. So we're a few layers down, or we were a few layers down, and we've been looking at ways to broaden it and make it more accessible, which is why you can now send payments not with Lightning, with card payments.
Which I've had a few, actually. I had two randomly, but I don't want them. No, I'm not being funny. I don't want them.
You don't have to receive them.
Well, no, but what I mean is I'd want the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I would rather the Bitcoin. And mainly because it's cheaper. Like the platform, what's it called? Stripe. There's a percent, like on a small payment, their percentage charge is quite high. And it's very interesting to look at, because I've got both now. I get streaming sats, and I've got, like I say, a couple of people have bought things outright with with fiat money.
Yeah.
And I'm probably not going to do anything. It's probably just going to sit on that app forever and nothing's going to happen to it. It doesn't seem like real money to me. It was a real eye-opener to me that I'm thinking, I really am a hard money advocate.
Yeah.
It's really happened. What I was going to say was, this is my experience of which listeners do send you money or subscribe, or it is those people, in my case, it is those people who care about what you're doing, who kind of feel a personal connection. I'm not sure in my case that I could scale necessarily. I mean, it's probably a very small percentage of people. And I agree that really when I go through my podcasting app, I'm not thinking about boosting people, except if I hear, say you and me are talking and you say something really innovative or cool.
Unlikely.
Or something. All right. But I get that urge when I'm listening. Oh, nice one, mate. Well done. And you want to send something. I just wonder whether that's a good business model. Like how I've always thought that the internet of the future should be, and obviously this is me thinking, it should be a massive network of micropayments for everything, literally seamlessly happening in the background. So when you're surfing the internet, without even realizing it, if you're on YouTube and you see a bit of my content, I get a quarter of a penny sit in the background seamlessly. And it's part of yours, a bit. It's basically the Fountain experience scaled up to the whole internet. But I don't know whether it could ever happen, because I don't know.
I think it's the reason it's so difficult is because the incentives are just not aligned. If you look at YouTube, obviously, like you said, the more time people spend watching stuff on YouTube, the more money that's going to be generated by advertisers for the platform and also for the content creator. If you think about how that works for the listener, like we said, most people don't actually want to pay for content. What's interesting though is that I saw a stat the other day that actually I think 15 to 20% of people in the US had actually paid for podcast content in some form. So we say that most people won't, but actually that was surprising.
How?
Because
how are 15% of people paying for content?
So it could be that someone who has subscribed to someone on Patreon, or they've used like like some of the big podcast networks have these in-app subscriptions for Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. People have subscribed there, or people have sent a donation, or there's various different ways they could have done that. But it surprised me actually that 15 to 20% it's higher than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, and the reason that because listeners won't pay, someone has to pay, and that person has to be, or that group has to be the advertiser, because no one else is going to do it. Otherwise, there's not going to be any money in it.
Do you think there's a future in completely ad-free content creation then? I mean, at the moment, even I'm thinking about when I look at Fountain, the top, the people who are earning the most money through the value for value network, like Max, and Ungovernable Misfits, people like that. Whenever I listen to that, I think, bloody hell, mate, people are donating 100,000 sats, 150,000. I'm like, every week they get a lot of sats. And like you say, he's built up a really good relationship where people understand that, this is his job and but he is also sponsored. He's also got sponsorship deals as well, right?
I think actually that the best solution and most likely real world solution is a combination of those two things, like having ads, having value for value, but then also having a subscription. That means you're just not reliant on any one single thing. The advertising market could dry up completely and you'd still be okay because you still got your supporters. So I think
I think you're right. Subscription is the one. People are much more likely to continue subscribing rather than every now and then deciding, I'm going to send some Bitcoin. I'm going to send some Bitcoin or something.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting though, because, Max's podcast, Ungovernable Misfits, is, from what I can see, it's not a huge podcast with a huge audience. It's big enough to get some advertisers, which is great. But he's also, like you said, got certain listeners sending 100,000 sats in one shot just because they want to. So if you think about it like that, maybe this idea does scale. Maybe if you can just get each listener from sending 1,000 sats to sending 50,000, 100,000, that's where it scales. It's not scaling through the number of payments, it's scaling through the value of payments.
True. But I think the way to win at podcasting probably in the first instance is to specialize for sure. But I think in the end, probably if you were like Diary of a CEO and you decided to go value for value, and 10% of people decided to support you, you'd make a lot of money because they're pulling in millions of listens per episode. Even if you monetize 1% of that, that's good money. But then that's like, I don't like that model though, because that's the YouTube model, which is you look at YouTube and you think, wow, you can make money on YouTube. And the answer is, no, you can't. 0.1% of people can make money on YouTube. Everyone else gets F all, basically. And I would love to see a system where everyone gets the opportunity to make a bit of money, because I think, I have worked in the media my whole life, and I've worked at lots of different types of media, and the most fun I'm having is being an independent creator in charge of everything, where no one tells you what to do and you just do what you do. A degree of that with this podcast, because I do work with the Free Cities Foundation, so content has to be in a certain direction. But really, I think freedom and ideas of freedom and free cities, they overlap with a lot of things that we do, and freedom in the media is one of these things, which is what you guys do. But it is hard, and I don't have any sort of dreams of being a value for value podcaster. I'd love it. I think it'd be brilliant. I would get up every morning to please my subscribers, really, because it's the perfect way to do business, because that's how you do business in a lot of other realms in your life.
Yeah.
If you run a coffee shop, you're not pleasing, the coffee manufacturer. You're pleasing your customer, and your customer comes into the shop, goes, great coffee, I'm coming here again. And you're like, yay. Free market is happening here. I'm producing something. You're buying it. This is all good. I do want that in the media. I really do. I just think maybe it takes a massive psychological change for people.
It does, and I think you're right. Like, it's when you have a relationship which is bound by money moving one way and a product moving the other way. It feels good. It's how all other markets work pretty much. Yet content doesn't work in that way. The listener gets something for free. The advertiser gives some money to the content creator. And I think that when you have that relationship bound by money, it brings you closer. It means there's a relationship that's actually there and it's going to last. And that listener will maybe follow you in whatever you do next. And I think, that's what we want. We want anybody, just to be able to do their own thing, host their own podcast. It could be about anything. There's no one dictating it. They can start from an audience of 0. And even if they only get to an audience of, 100 or 1,000, they've got enough there to sustain them, or at least feel like they can see the path to, okay, the more I put into this, the more I get out of it.
It's interesting. I've never thought of that before, that the media does work in a funny way. And I'm wondering why that happens, because I used to work in newspapers when they were still picked up and read, and people paid for newspapers. You paid like 20p or 40p or £1 or whatever, but there were ads as well in the newspapers. So they were buying a product, but you were also subsidizing it with advertisers. So yeah. I wonder whether this is ever going to change. There'll always be, like, when will anyone ever see listening to a podcast as a product that they need to buy? Because I know a lot of people. I know another guy trying to monetize content in that same way, using Bitcoin, using the Lightning Network, having things behind paywalls. So, but using Nostr, so that if you buy something, you kind of own it, if you see what I mean. So if you buy, it's like you're buying the right to listen to a bit of content, and you'll have that right forever. So you can, the cryptographically, you can always listen to that. So it does change the idea a little bit to, I am actually buying something now.
Yeah.
Rather than,
Yeah. I think that the technology that the media is built on and distributed through has a massive role in dictating what the dynamics of the marketplace are that come after it. Because if you think about radio, a lot of early radio was public radio, and it was available in every car, every radio station everywhere. It was freely available. So listeners are never going to pay for that. It was always going to have to be something that was supported by advertising. And then if you look at the film industry, films are so incredibly expensive to make. And yes, there are people that will pay to go to the cinema to watch them. But is there enough money to cover the cost of production? Maybe not. That's why they have to go out and get financiers to put money into the studios to make them happen. And that's, eventually when film got absorbed into Netflix and other things where these big kind of rights and media packages were being sold, again, that's subsidizing for the huge cost of making these programs, because not enough people are paying the $9.99 a month for Netflix to make the model work. So, and for podcasting, it's built on RSS. It's an open protocol. If you have a podcast feed, anyone can listen to that feed. So it's very, very hard to paywall something, to contain the information that's already been made free everywhere else.
I think it goes back to the internet. There's the reason. I remember when I worked in Fleet Street, it was completely analog. And I went through that whole process of the media going from analog to digital. And it took me ages to get my head around the idea that a way you might make money is by doing something for free, and then it paying in sort of hindsight or in another way, in an indirect way. I'd never done that before. I was a jobbing photographer, so I did jobs for money. I sold rights to pictures. I made, it was all like, here's something, you've got it now, here's my money for it, and then the platforms became the publishers, and the platforms required your content for free. And I really resisted at the start. I remember telling everyone, this is a scam. Look, can you not see what's happening? The old version of being a photographer was a magazine bought your content and put it in their magazine. The new model is Instagram's the magazine.
Yep.
It's the mag where all the content's being shown, but you're just giving it to them.
Yep.
I said, stop it. And obviously you can't. And then to cope, you start going, okay, right, maybe they're right. Maybe I give it to them for free. It gives me publicity. I get a job somewhere else and blah, blah, blah. So it does generate me money. But that's bullshit, to be perfectly honest. It does work for some people, but not for many. Whereas in the old system, when I was working, there were thousands of photographers making a living. Even I worked at the Independent. We had 20 photographers at one point. It's insane, jobbing daily photographers, and obviously now there's no photographers there at all. And even if there was, the wages would be half of what they were back then because, but it is the kind of the way the internet has been implemented. It's a place to advertise. It's the platform to advertise on rather than an arena, the marketplace where the trade happens between me and the person that has my content. Maybe that's the solution here. Maybe that's why Nostr is so important, even though it's not very popular at the moment, because it's peer-to-peer. And maybe the problem with the internet is there's no peer-to-peer places to swap content. Like Instagram's a place where you swap content, but someone monetizes it in the back end and you get basically taken for granted completely. Whereas with Nostr, arguably, you have control over your content. I don't know. I don't know enough about Nostr to make a prediction. What do you think? Am I talking? Am I confused? I do sound a little bit confused, actually.
I think it's fair enough to be confused. I mean, Nostr is such a new and significant innovation that we're all still figuring out what it's going to be used for. Like, what problems is it going to solve? And I think people are interested in different aspects of Nostr because there are so many different parts of it. You've got the identity aspect of it. You've got the sort of portability of that identity, be able to take it anywhere. So you no longer have an Instagram account, a Facebook account, whatever, a Google account. You just have one account. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But then, I don't know, I think the interesting aspect for me is the fact that all of the content can move across different platforms. Not necessarily that the people can move across different platforms. Sure, that's cool. But it's really interesting now that, I mean, if you put it into like a modern world example, somebody posts something on Instagram and someone can see it on YouTube. Like, how cool is that? Like, you forget about you don't have this idea of a platform anymore. It's a network, it's an ecosystem. You put something into the ecosystem and it can pop up on any number of different apps, and people on any number of different apps can interact with it and respond to it. Like, that is really, really cool.
That's good for content, but that's not necessarily good for content creators. Like, in as much as if I don't like the way like, for example, if you go on YouTube, you're being shown a bunch of videos that you might not want. Do you go to Nostr or a Nostr client that shows videos? You can control the algorithm yourself. You can see whatever you want. You can see everything, or you can, that's great. But what about people who want to make a living out of content? People who are running podcasts, running shows, I mean, it's a big business now, isn't it? Think about how many people. It's become part of a business model as well. Podcasting, especially. The thing, like, I'm a perfect example of this because I listened to podcasts for years, and then I was asked to do this one, And when I started doing it, I realized what an incredible tool for business it is.
Yeah.
I.e., you and me are sat across a table now. If I want to do business with Fountain and I phone you up and say, hey, can I talk to you? You say, let's do a 10-minute Zoom call. If you run a podcast, you can come in, sit down. Before you know it, you really get to know someone. And that happened to us with this podcast.
Yeah.
We went to visit in person all these places, and it was massive for our network of connections. It was beautiful. It was brilliant, which is obviously, in one sense, this is one of the ways we're monetizing this podcast. We don't get actual money for it, but our network is growing in value. But then the question is, okay, how am I going to monetize that network? And normally it's like, let's find some people who might want to advertise here then. Because now we've got the eyeballs, now we've got the ears and the eyeballs, what can we sell them? And, I don't like that thing. And there's a part of me that thinks that is a service as well. Because I have one advertiser who I really like, and I really like what they're doing. So in a way, I'm like, cool. I'm really happy to tell you about Veritas Village, for example, or the off-grid communities in Panama and stuff. But really, the ideal way to make a living would be for listeners to, in a small way, especially through a subscription, I like that, me to get, X number of dollars each month, like a wage, for doing it, so that I can then run the business like, okay, this is how much is coming in. This is how much I can afford to spend on travel. This is how much I can afford to spend on post-production, blah, 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 which is the dream, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. That's the benefit of, like sponsorship deals and subscriptions is you get recurring revenue that's reliable. And that's the thing with value for value. It's the complete opposite. One episode might get you, I don't know, 500,000 sats, and the next one gets you 2,000, and you're like, what's the difference? Like, how did one end up doing so well? But I think that's also the great thing, is because you get a really clear signal of what work is actually valuable. You don't get that with advertising. The advertiser pays based on the size of the audience, not on the quality of the content. And funnily enough, like, the quality of content doesn't always dictate the size of the audience when it comes to podcasts. Some of these podcasters just have big audiences because they are celebrities. Like, the quality of the actual content they're making is pretty poor. But people just like them because they're likable characters, they're popular characters. So I think, it's interesting that we can get to a place where the content creator is really getting a clear signal on what's working, and then can do more of that stuff. And that's kind of a self-reinforcing loop whereby you're really optimizing towards enjoyment rather than the size of the audience and the number of eyeballs on it.
Which is good in one sense, but then in another sense, you can end up in a bubble that way. I mean, if you're the kind of podcast that's into something, often you're, one particular thing, or if you're pushing a certain idea like we do, if you're not careful, the audience might want cat pictures, cat videos. Do you know what I mean? Like, which is, I don't know. I'm not. That's underestimating my audience, of course, but I wouldn't necessarily say that part of being a creative is to please your audience all the time. I think, you worked in advertising. That's a creative's worst nightmare, is when the ad guys are all, I've been at shoots. I shot ads for a while, and I'll be there doing my job, and there'd be like a row of people behind me in stages, the client, and they're all saying, can you do that? Can you do, and you're thinking, why? And this is why when I employ creatives, I just say, just go and do it. Here's what I want. You go and do it, and I accept what you bring me. That's why I've come to you as a creative. So listening to your audience is good, but not always, I think.
I agree. But also on the other side of this, if you have advertisers, you have to listen to them. Like, what do they want you to do, or what don't they want you to do and talk about?
Hopefully not. I mean, that would be a proviso of me advertising with someone. Yeah. If I suddenly realize, I don't like your product, I'm not going to mince my words. I mean, I think part of the attention economy is based on honesty and trust these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that, I love that. That's great. You're right that there are some celebrities who have podcasts who are diabolical and not worth listening to, but some people do. I mean, people watch cat videos, don't they? You can't stop that. But in our realm of the attention economy, I think it's really important to be honest, own up to your mistakes, say it like it is, and if you don't, you could struggle. But then again, I don't know. I know some very well listened to podcasts that screwed their listeners over and are doing very well in the Bitcoin space as well. That's something. I don't know, mate. I don't know. I don't know what the business model is. All I know is that, do you think that there's a future in mass value for value, like mass adoption value for value?
I hope so. I think that, like you said at the very beginning, though, are we too early? I think we can be early on different fronts. I think technologically, yes, for sure, we're still early. You know, I've already said about the number of people who are using the Bitcoin Lightning Network or know how to use it or even want to use it is still so small. That has been a limiting factor so far. But then the other thing is the consumer mindset and expectation of actually paying for something that's free already. So I think that it really depends on the type of podcaster you are. There's some very clear and obvious examples already that tell us that value for value in itself exclusively can work as a business model for some podcasts. Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak have been doing that for 15 years, I think 20 years with no agenda. You know, originally that started out as, we will take your checks in the post, and then it's, you can send us money on PayPal. And now it's, you can send us a boost on Fountain or any other podcasting 2.0 app. So the technology has evolved behind a value for value, and I think it will continue to evolve. But it really comes down to the creator, like how much do you want that freedom? Because if you really want it, you have to really commit to it over a long period of time, be really, really consistent, and not make any stupid decisions about, you know, advertising or other kind of things you might do to try and, you know, line your pockets. I think what No Agenda have done is they've just been very, very, very honest and very transparent with listeners about, cool, we're self-funded, we don't have ads, send us some money so that we never have to do ads. And they built that relationship over the years, and they have a great relationship with their audience. So they take value for value to the next level, where it's not just someone sending money, it's actually someone offering their time by creating the show artwork or doing the chapters or whatever else it might be. There's a whole community of people here who are kind of producers on the show, which is really cool. So yeah, I think there is a future for it. I think though that most creators will find that value for value is just one aspect of their revenues. So using kind of the donations alongside a subscription or alongside having ads on your podcast.
Community, you're absolutely right. I was thinking about Adam Curry there, and it's a very subtle and intangible thing, community, isn't it? When you think about it in those terms. Yes, he does a show a day, doesn't he, Adam? And it's like kind of like a news show on, you know, it's a great fun podcast, but really to get to the level where you can lean on your listeners as much as they do is purely about maintaining this solid reason for existing. And do they have like ways that their community reach out to each other independently and stuff? Is that how it works? They
what's it called? They have this like IRC chat. So it's like a decentralized chat system whereby the chat's always live. Anyone can post in it whenever. And they also have, I mean, I'm not like too close to the show, but they have this like No Agenda live stream whereby it's like a 24/7 live stream that shows No Agenda content, but it also shows other podcasts. So it's kind of like like any other podcast within their sort of community can get some airtime on it. So there's always something to watch, and it helps kind of cross-pollinate that listener base across other shows, bring fans of those different shows together. And then I don't know how, like, so people, the audience create the artwork for each episode, and you can just submit them, and then Adam and John choose the artwork every episode, and they give a credit to the person. So that they have all these different ways that they try and bring community into what they do. And like, it sounds like really nice. Like any podcast, you could see that and be like, oh, it's really cool. But like, you have to ask yourself, like, how much do I want that? Like, because it's a real commitment. Like, you have to put in a lot of work, and you have to be really focused on that purpose, that end goal, without getting distracted by other things.
Especially, it's interesting. Adam Curry's been on Joe Rogan's podcast a number of times, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Not just once.
I think if you have 4 or 5.
Right. And still, value for value is not very well known about. I mean, that just shows you how unsticky kind of value for value in streaming with Bitcoin is, because he's the number one guy. Rogan loves him. He's always calling him the pod father, and he really, I think he got him into podcasting, in fact. So he really does big him up, and Adam does talk about what he's doing, but people don't seem to come over. You can understand that he's probably monetizing that enough from that amount of exposure. But yeah, I do think it would be tricky for the average podcast to think in those terms. Like, why should I try this? I mean, I suppose in the beginning, it doesn't really matter. Nothing ventured, nothing gained in the beginning. But you're absolutely right. You really do have to go for it. And unfortunately, I suppose at the moment, the value for value world is very skewed towards really Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Really, Bitcoiners.
Yeah. Is people who already have that sort of freedom mindset, who want to live outside of the system and have a different way of doing things. And it's, podcasters who also have that mindset as well. So naturally, that's where the movement has began and where it's kind of prospered. But that's what we want to change. We want to see if this can go and be something more mainstream.
Have you got other types of content on there then? What are obviously there's a ton of Bitcoin you get freedom podcasts like ours and Freedom Footprint, that kind of thing, and then you get like Bitcoin podcasts through and through. Like what have you got that isn't related to that?
I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, and it's also not just podcasts either. We also have music on there. And we also have music shows, which are podcasts which play music that you can support the artist directly. So in terms of podcasts, there's all sorts of genres and categories of podcasts on Fountain that are actually using Fountain. Not all of them are successful because, again, we're struggling with those issues of like, are we too early on the technology front, on the consumer mindset front? But also I think that some of let's say like a sports podcast on Fountain, for example, like, they maybe have got into Fountain because they thought it sounded interesting, but they maybe just found they hit that barrier of like, I'm not really sure what to do next. I'm not sure if my listeners will know what to do next, which I think is why it's mostly Bitcoin podcasts that have done well. But I think what's really interesting though is the whole music aspect, because going back to that thing we were saying about what problem are we solving for podcasters, well, the problem we're solving for artists is even more clearer. And it's, I think, something that the listeners understand even more than the podcast listeners do, which is that artists don't get paid very well. You know, the terms and conditions of the music industry are incredibly oppressive for artists. I think if your song gets streamed 1,000 times on Spotify, you maybe make $4 or $5.
I don't think it's even that. I saw some
maybe less. It depends on
horrendous numbers from Snoop Dogg or something.
Yeah,
said he got
some
ridiculous, like 1 billion listens, and it was worth like a few $1,000 or something. It was ridiculous.
And then, that pay per stream, that's come down considerably over the years, while at the same time the cost of a Spotify subscription has gone up considerably. So there's something going on there.
But once again, that I saw that happening in real time when I worked in the media. And I just thought, okay, the model of the copyrighted music model is just out of date now. Because what you saw happened was people had to go out and play gigs on stage to make money. That was it. And I didn't see that as necessarily a bad thing. I thought, okay, we've lived off this kind of renting, this mindset of I can produce music and then I can send it out there and go to bed and it makes me money, to okay, now I actually have to get up and go to work. I need a proof of work here. I need to actually be on stage strumming my guitar and singing in order to make the money. I didn't see that as necessarily a bad thing. Or no, I didn't like it because it basically, I used to get a lot of money in royalties from video and film. It's almost non-existent now.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really happen. It does happen every month, but it's minuscule. You used to be able to live off royalties. But when I think about that system in general, it's like, yeah, okay, it is a bit better to actually get paid for what you do. It's a bit rent-seeking-y to sort of like ask for people to pay just to listen to my stuff over and over again. But then again, if you're prepared to pay, which people on Fountain, do you pay? Do you subscribe to an audio channel then, or do you pay per song or what?
So it's exactly the same as it is for podcasts. You can choose to stream money to the artist directly. You can choose to send a boost, and we'll also be launching subscriptions for artists as well. So you could put exclusive releases material on Fountain that wasn't anywhere else. You can allow people to like download a high quality MP3 or WAV file. You can maybe even do stuff off platform. So if you want to give away early access to gig tickets or discount on your merch page or access to your private group chat, whatever else you want to do, you can do that through Fountain. But yeah, it's interesting because again, the same thing that applies with podcasts also applies with music in the sense that the listener loves the artists, but they're not actually paying. They're not paying anything. Gone are the days where you walk into a record shop and you pick up a record from the artist and that X%, whatever the deal they've got with the label, X% is going to go into that artist's pocket. At the moment, I'm just paying Spotify or paying YouTube Music or whatever else, and somewhere in the background they figure out the economics and a bit of money goes to the artist, but you don't have that direct relationship anymore. So that's what we're trying to bring back.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting problem to solve for, because what was beautiful about the old system is there's a collectability to the actual items themselves. I've still got my complete collection of vinyl.
Yeah.
Ironically, I sold my decks. I had SL1200s, Pioneer, really nice decks. I sold them, but I kept the vinyl because it had sentimental value. The decks didn't, even CDs, which is a bad example because they've really you can buy CDs for like 50p each now, but people used to collect rows and rows of CDs, and we need to find a way to, I suppose merch is the modern, incarnation of that. But imagine if you could merch per episode or something. I don't know. Maybe we're just in this world now where people, we're moving on from that model, and media is more free, information is more free, and it always will be. And I don't know. I would love a value for value world, though. I really do. I think we need a complete change of infrastructure in order to have that. I think if we could all live in a kind of, if the Nostr infrastructure, for example, permeated large swathes of the population, or even just large communities, it could be that you could probably, I'm not techie enough, but someone could implement a system where micropayments happen in the background without you thinking about it. Like it happens on you. That's what you guys have started doing.
Yeah.
If I watch a podcast, I'm paying them 10 sats. If I listened, this morning I listened to one, I was being paid 20 sats for 10 minutes, which back to me for listening. The theory is good, right? The theory is good.
I think whatever it is, like we have to just try and work on, for the listener, taking the friction out of it.
Yeah.
You notice as well, like, particularly when you're in London, that a lot of the buskers on the underground have card machines now, and they preload like £5 or something onto their card machine, so you can just walk past and tap it. Because people are tight. People don't want to pay for stuff unless they really have a good reason to, and unless it's made really, really easy for you. And I think that's why the streaming sats is so interesting, is because it just happens in the background. You just turn it on. I can set it on for your show and then maybe off for another show that I don't like as much. I can choose how much I want to send per minute to your show versus some other show that I'm supporting. And I don't have to do anything. I don't have to lift a finger. It just happens in the background. There's no there's no mental challenge on me at all. There's no decision of like, am I going to do this? What am I going to say? Like, how much am I going to send? It just happens. So we need to try and find ways of making it, more frictionless. And I think having more payment options is part of that as well.
Okay, I can see, because we're in a WeWork, we've got a limited time here, and I have to take down all this equipment. I think I've got one time for one more question. It has to be a question about the future, I think. So, and in particular, because I see the movement I'm in, the kind of freedom movement, the free cities movement. It's the free cities movement, at least, is quite a fledgling thing. This idea of independent jurisdictions and people setting up new places, it's quite new. And I can see that I've got an opportunity to talk about it, and people come and listen to it, which is great, but not massive amounts of people, because it's a small industry. But as people, I've noticed on our stats, our listenership just goes up and up and up. It's not flattening out. It's just going up and up and up, slowly but surely. And I think that's about right. I predict that, because there's only so many people that want to hear about these kind of things until it becomes important to them. And I think as time progresses, I think the world appears to be on a trajectory where people are losing their freedom more and more. And every day someone new kind of bumps up against this barrier and goes, oh, shit. And then they look it up, and then they end up being a listener, and then, right. So I see that. And I think it's great that people can start podcasts as well. I think it's really important that people can start podcasts. And these days, podcasts aren't even podcasts. Podcasts are shows. Podcast is almost like it's becoming a bad word almost, but the show is the old, as in the old TV show that you used to do. They're really quite important, I think, probably, if not the most important thing about getting in the battle of ideas. So I'm thankful for like value for value platforms like yours, but what are you hoping in the future, and what do you think the timeline is for that? As someone that's like on it all day, working on it all day, promoting it, trying to get people to be on it, seeing what content are putting on there, seeing how much people are being listened to, seeing how much money they're making, what's the outlook for people that want to spread ideas through podcasting, according to you?
Yeah, well, I think that as of next month, which is when we'll launch our podcast hosting platform that you've been using.
Oh, we haven't launched it yet?
Yeah, well, it's still kind of in beta, really.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
You're still one of the first few, but maybe by the time this comes out, it'll be live already. Finally, podcasters will have all the tools they need to be able to go and make this successful. They've got the donations, they've got the subscriptions, they've got the premium content they want to do, like bonus episodes, ad-free, early access, whatever. And they've also got the ability to not just receive payments in Bitcoin, but fiat money as well. So that we've been pining for that really for the last couple of years to get to that point, while also having a mobile app which just works, and the UX is what you would expect it to be, and it's what the listener needs it to be if they're going to move over from Spotify. So I think that very, very soon, by the end of this year, we'll have something that we think can, get product market fit. The question is like, how broad can that market fit be? Because at the moment, I'd say maybe we have market fit with Bitcoiners, but that for us is probably not going to be enough longer term for us to make a valuable company out of it. So I don't know. I think the good thing is that we're no longer really relying on adoption of Bitcoin for adoption of our product. In the past, we have been. And as much as we are big believers in Bitcoin and value the freedom it gives us, the technology, the way that it works is so much better than the fiat world. At least we're no longer reliant on that. So yeah, I don't know. I'd say what I would love to see is within the next year or 18 months, a really large podcaster who maybe has an audience in the millions, who is nothing to do with Bitcoin, who is able to earn some meaningful money on Fountain. And by meaningful money, I mean maybe something that can compete with the amount of money they'd be getting from advertising. That I think would be a great outcome for us.
Yeah, I think that would. It just occurred to me with the. That was a great place to end, but it just made me think of something, and that was that because you're integrated with Nostr, do new people that come on who aren't into the whole Bitcoin Nostr networks, do they still have to join Nostr?
You don't have to. If you want to use any of the social features, like if you want to comment on something, you want to, I think, create a clip or a playlist, you have to create a Nostr profile. But you can do that within Fountain.
What about if you want to subscribe with dollars? Which, like I say, I've got a subscriber with dollars. And do they have to have a Nostr account, even though they're just sending dollars over Stripe?
They would, yeah, because we actually, and not to get too deep into the technological stuff, but we actually need Nostr to prove your identity when you're buying something. So if I've subscribed to your podcast, or if I bought one of your bonus episodes, I can prove that I purchased it. So if I'm logged in, let's say like another podcast app started the same subscription thing that we have, which they can do because it's all built on an open protocol. If I subscribe to your show on Fountain, but then I downloaded this other app and logged into my Nostr profile there, I would still be able to access your content from that other app too, because I'm using the Nostr profile as the verification layer.
Right. Okay. Maybe we are a little bit too early. I don't know. I think I'm excited because, like, I've only got a few subscribers, but it's still some subscribers paying money, and that's exciting. You just sort of like adjust your how excited you get about certain amounts of money meter, whatever that is, in the old, if you have, it's not how much you're earning, it's the fact that people are choosing to hit the subscribe button and send you money regularly, which is really cool. And I hope I'm playing the long game here. I'm definitely on board because I'm in that world as well. The freedom world of the Bitcoin world are bedfellows, and a lot of our people are in the Fountain world. And it's true, even when you look at the statistics, even when we were on Spotify, the number of listeners was Spotify and Fountain were often having a battle with each other with how many people were using the platform to listen. Because sometimes you have episodes which are more geared towards the Bitcoiner side, and then they like listening to those. But yeah, I really do hope that the whole thing scales and the whole thing evolves into something big. Because I've been in the media my whole life, my whole working life, and the dream right from the word go, when the digital world started appearing and I spotted it, the dream was always to live in a value for value system, always in everything you did. It was the way that I saw you would get paid when we started moving into the digital world, and you started realizing creators were getting completely disenfranchised by this whole system. And whilst it's only a few people at the moment, let's hope in the future it could be just the way things work, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll do everything we can to get there.
Cool. Well, Nick, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for coming in to here. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I feel really young and vibrant being around all these people doing hot desking and stuff like that. And yeah, good luck. And yeah, thanks for talking. It's been great.
Thanks a lot.